Hello, FPL managers, and welcome back to Fantasy Football Hub's Game Week 12 preview with me, James. And as always, I'm joined by big man Bakar. Bakar, an eventful international break. New managers coming in, new profile pictures coming in. How have you been, mate?
I've been great, James. Just enjoyed some time off over the break. Um, it was good to go into the break on the back of a green arrow. I had a very good week last week. Got an arrow of around green arrow of around 70K places. I'm just outside the 100K now, so I'm
Okay,
looking to kick on in the festive schedule.
it's a nice
How about
position
yourself?
to
You've been
be in.
doing really well. How was your week?
Yeah, I finished on a red arrow. I had
Yeah,
Sanchez, who I
you were
know
due
we'll talk
one.
about today. I was due one
You were due a
exactly.
red arrow.
No complaints.
Yeah.
I'm on 16k, so I went from 9k to 16k. So,
It's still a
you know,
superb rank to be in
yeah,
this stage of the
exactly.
season.
I definitely can't complain. We move on, and we do. I mean, we were saying off air that there is plenty to talk about ahead of game week
Exactly.
12, mate. So we shouldn't dally too much. Let's get right into it. Firstly, by looking at the fixtures as we always do. Look at that Saturday. There are 8 matches taking place, 6 of which 3 o'clock kickoffs. But the day starts with Leicester versus Chelsea, which for FPL managers could be quite a big game to kick off the week. So let's start with that, Bakar, and we'll start with the home side and their main man, Jamie Vardy. Disappointing FPL managers for about 4 game weeks on the trot, and not an easy fixture to turn around his fortunes this game week.
For sure. I bought him in 3 weeks ago, and honestly, the experience couldn't have gone any worse. His numbers have fallen off a cliff. Leicester are going through a rough spell. They're likely to be without Tielemans due to an injury this week. And Tielemans is actually been their top chance creator this season. He's accumulated almost like 25% of their chances alone. So his potential injury could be a big concern for Vardy. Uh, Even the odds suggest that Chelsea are second favorites for a clean sheet this week. So no one is really giving Leicester prayer coming into this one. I own Vardy and I have him on my bench, and I personally think it's either time to get rid or maybe just bench him this week because I don't have too many expectations. He has Watford next week, and so I'm hoping if Tielemans is back, then I can probably hold him for 1 or 2 more fixtures. But I think his time is running out.
It's a lot of money to bench, though, isn't it, Bakar? I suppose, especially when
Yeah.
other premium forwards are popular this game week, and we will talk about 2 of those later on in this video.
Yeah.
A lot of FPL managers will be hoping that Vardy stays quiet, and that's because they almost certainly own one of these 2 defenders, Reece James and Ben Chilwell, both of them doing fantastically of late. What have you got to say about them? How do you rate their prospects, both from a defensive perspective and an attacking one, in this fixture?
I think both are fantastic options to own going forward. When you look at penalty area touches per start for defenders, I mean, James and Chilwell have started playing since game week 7, and since game week 7, they're actually the top 2 in terms of penalty area touches per 90, and touches in the final third per 90 as well, which is a very relevant stat when it comes to defenders. This just tells me, that they're getting into extremely promising positions, especially Reece James. Now, Reece James, even last week against Burnley, he created 5 chances, including one for Kai Havertz. He could have had many more points. Chilwell himself could have had an opportunity to score had Barkley chosen to pass to him, which he didn't. But I think both of these are extremely good options to own going forward. I understand there's a risk of rotation surrounding both of them, particularly in the festive period. But I think you've got to own at least one of them in this spell because the damage they can do when they play is incredible.
Yeah, I mean, just on the eye test alone, both of them, but particularly Reece James. I actually own Chilwell, so it's difficult for me to watch Reece James's performance. He's one of those players that you're just delighted you own every time you watch him play, if indeed
Yeah.
you do own him, because he's just always threatening, and his
Mm.
underlying stats really speak to that. There's one other Chelsea player you'd like to discuss. Very, very popular a couple of game weeks ago. His popularity is waning, however. It's Kai Havertz. Now, why have you highlighted Havertz over other Chelsea attackers, Bakar? For example, Mason Mount. For example, potentially the returning Lukaku.
I have highlighted him because he seems to be a big conundrum for a lot of FPL managers who own him this week. A lot of managers are deciding whether or not to keep him or sell him. In my opinion, he could be potentially worth keeping if Lukaku isn't fit. But if Lukaku is fit, we will have more news by tomorrow um, in the press conferences. I think if Lukaku is fit, then it's definitely worth getting rid of Havertz. I think his time is extremely limited now because his performances when Mount and Lukaku have been in the side haven't really been that great, and he sort of doesn't really occupy the goal threat that goal scoring positions that he usually does when he's playing as a striker. Um, I think we'll talk about for Foden and Jota later, but I think if you don't own either of them, I'd personally sell Havertz.
Brilliant. It doesn't get more cut and dry than that. Right, let's move on to the first of the 3 o'clock fixtures, Aston Villa versus Brighton. And many managers were scorned by Brighton's goalkeeper, Robert Sanchez, receiving that red card. And, of course, conceding a goal. -1 he ended up with. And it's Robert Sanchez you want to talk about today, Bakar, presumably with an eye to potential replacements.
Exactly. Now, this is a very interesting dilemma that a lot of FPL managers are facing. There's some managers who don't have a substitute keeper. For example, they don't have Steele or Foster. Steele, by the way, is Brighton's second choice goalkeeper, and Potter did confirm that he is to start the game against Villa when Sanchez will be suspended. So, in my opinion, if you own a substitute keeper, there's no point in getting rid of Sanchez because I think it's a low priority transfer. But if you don't have a substitute keeper, then I think it becomes more of a priority. In case you're looking to sell, I would look at either Ramsdale or Guaita. Ramsdale, I don't really need to say much about. We've already seen that he accumulates a lot of saves, even in the difficult games. He's you when you come into a season, you sort of know that goalkeeper is into form and his stock is on the rise. You see that with Ramsdale. Very recently he got his first England cap, and you just know he's in a good place, right? Which was the case with Emi Martinez last season. The alternative could be to go with Gaita. I think Crystal Palace are doing a great job defensively. In fact, they're ranked fourth according to the Fantasy Football Hub Opta tool in terms of expected goals conceded. Only Chelsea, Liverpool, and Man City have done better in terms of expected goals conceded. And this is despite the fact that Palace have had very tough fixtures to begin with. They've already played the top dogs this season, and now they have a good fixture run. So Gaita, I think, is another excellent option to own. One last thing on Gaita I'd like to add is that he also has the best minutes per baseline bonus point accumulated ratio, which means that whenever Crystal Palace are to keep a clean sheet, he fares better for bonus points than their defenders. So he's likely to end up with a significant haul if they keep a clean sheet because of his pass distribution percentage.
Yeah, that is a pretty compelling case too. I mean, lots of people have been looking for an avenue in which to invest when it comes to that Crystal Palace defence anyway. And so, this suspension for Sanchez, albeit just a one-match suspension, but still, it is, I think, maybe the impetus that some managers need. And there's also an argument, I think, Bakar, that, even if you do have a playing substitute keeper, like the likes of Foster, for example, Brighton's defence aren't necessarily what they used to be from a statistical perspective, and that maybe this is a good excuse to get off them for the time being. Is that legitimate, do you think, or am I barking up the wrong tree here?
I'm not sure. Brighton, they have looked good in spells, but in certain games, for example, in the game against City, I was very surprised to see their approach, or they're very open at home. I still think, if you have a substitute keeper, I don't think it's too much of a priority because with the likes of Jota, Spurs assets in the mix now, I think there are higher priority transfers to make. I think I'll just leave the goalkeeper because it's not as if it will make a huge difference. I don't think this decision will make a huge difference come the end of the season. So I'd just leave it as it is.
Okay, brilliant. Burnley versus Crystal Palace. A game that, again, on paper, not necessarily the most exhilarating, but Conor Gallagher, an incredibly popular transfer in this week after another great performance in game week 11. He's got the underlying stats, Bakar. His club are in form. Everything seems to be going for him.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I think he's a great option to own. He's only 5.9 million, and I was just speaking about Palace and how well they're doing despite their tough fixture run. Across the first 11 game weeks, Gallagher is actually fourth for XG, and that is despite the fact that he's missed a game. And one thing I've noticed is that he's actually been doing well in the tougher games. In the absence of Milivojevic, what he does is that he pushes forward and he gets more responsibility. And it looks as if Milivojevic won't be playing now because Palace have seemed to have gone on a winning run. So if that is to be the case, then Gallagher, I think there's more points from him to come. He's also going to be on set pieces, so that helps.
And Burnley, a very good fixture. After I've got Aston Villa. We don't really know too much about Aston Villa given they're under new management, but they certainly have been vulnerable in recent weeks. And then Leeds after that as well. So some good fixtures in the short term for Gallagher too. Newcastle versus Brentford, and a couple of attackers that you'd like to discuss here. Starting with Callum Wilson for Newcastle. I didn't think we'd see the day that we'd be talking about Newcastle forwards with any kind of enthusiasm, Bakar. But new manager at the helm now, one that knows Callum Wilson well.
And has worked successfully with him in the past. That means that should only mean good for Wilson. I mean, Wilson, even this season, you notice that that he has a good minutes per XGI when it comes to forwards. It's in fact among the top ones this season. I think Wilson is a good option to own, especially for three of the next four fixtures. They have Brentford, Burnley, and Norwich at home in three of the next four. I think if anyone is to buy Wilson, the time to buy him is right now. Else, I think the boat will sail. The only thing that worries me with Wilson is his injuries, which has been a problem with him in the past, and especially in the fixture congestion period. So that's something I'm wary of. But I think Wilson is an excellent option to own. I think he's it's safe to say he's going to be their talisman. He's actually been involved in 50% of their goals this season, which is a very high goal involvement rate as well. So whenever Newcastle are to score, Wilson is likely to be right up there.
Brentford, of course, lost to Norwich, the first team to do so so far this season in game week 11, conceding 2 goals to them as well. Have you made any correlation, Bakar, between Raya, their goalkeeper, being out and their sudden leakiness at the back? Because I would say up until game week 9-ish, Brentford were perceived as quite a rigid defensive team. Now, all of a sudden, we're looking at players that are playing them.
It's hard to say because Brentford have been very on and off this season. I see no pattern, no trends to to their defense this season. Honestly, they will accumulate a good XG conceded for a few weeks, and that will go right up, right down the shredder in the next game week when they get ripped apart by Norwich to shreds. So I won't read too much into it. Um, I think there's still a decent defense, and we might get some points going forward. But I won't definitely own a Brentford defender because I don't think they're reliable enough, and I think I would happily back an attacker playing them.
Okay,
they're dodgy defense, I think.
2 Brentford players that you might well still have some investment in. They are, of course, these 2, Toney and Mbeumo. Oh, another incredibly disappointing showing for them against Norwich. It might have been so different if that goal had been allowed.
I was up and shouting at the television once I saw that goal being scored. I owned both of them, so it was absolutely infuriating to have seen that goal disallowed. Then again, as I said, Brentford have blown hot and cold this season. I personally think it's worth giving these two another chance, particularly this week, because I expect Howe to play an attacking brand of football. He's never been known for a defense first approach, anyways, and he might revert to forward the back for Newcastle. I don't really think Newcastle have the quality or the personnel to be playing that kind of system, which Howe would like to play, and I think that could leave them exposed this weekend. I think this is a good fixture to own Toney and Mbeumo for.
Okay, yeah, brilliant. When we think of Howe in a Premier League, we think of Bournemouth, of course, and their brand, as you say, was very much great value
Expansive.
forwards, Josh King and Callum Wilson, but conceded a lot of goals. So if Newcastle are anything like
Exactly.
that, it could be a banquet for Toney and Mbeumo to feast upon.
Exactly.
Okay, Norwich versus Southampton. Can Norwich keep up their winning streak of one? They will have a new manager trying to do exactly that. Um, we're not going to spend any time on Norwich assets just yet, because
Absolutely.
maybe in a couple of weeks' time we'll be talking about them. But for now,
It's all about Livramento, isn't it?
exactly, it is indeed. Will you be starting in this game week?
I mean, yeah, it's actually unbelievable that I know how much of a good pick he is, but I have refused to start him in any of the weeks actually. Till now, he's come off the bench, but he's never been a starter in my side. And again, this week it's hard to gauge what the new manager bounce will bring. With Dean Smith at the helm, I think that should probably mean that the crowd is right behind the team. I think the players will be playing for the manager. There's a good chance that they might score. But what the raw data is telling me is the fact that Livramento is actually a very good option. Over the last 4 weeks, Southampton are the best team in terms of XG conceded. They've conceded the fewest amount of big chances. Norwich this season have been very poor in terms of XG. They're the worst, and the fact that Norwich tend to concede a lot of chances down their left flank. They've conceded the second highest number of chances down that flank, so Livramento could even potentially get an attacking return. I have him on my bench this week, but I know the risks. I know there could be more agony to come.
Potential captaincy option, if you ask me, Bakar. I won't be putting my armband on him, but he will certainly be in my starting 11. That's partly due to the fact I have very few good defenders. Okay, Watford versus Manchester United. What a disappointing international break for Cristiano Ronaldo. Could his
Yeah.
fortunes turn in this game, however, Bakar?
It's difficult to say, James, at this point in time because there's so much uncertainty. Conflicting reports. Some people are saying that Ole is going to be sacked. Some are saying he's going to be backed. We don't know what to expect from United. The major talking point this week is a lot of people are in that market for a premium forward. Those of who are getting rid of Vardy or Aubameyang are looking at the likes of Ronaldo and Kane, and the common question is whether it's worth jumping on Ronaldo straight away or whether um, they should wait for till game week 16 when Ronaldo's run gets significantly easier. In my opinion, it's worth waiting till game week 16 on Ronaldo and all other United assets to see what kind of system they're playing, what kind of form they're in. They still have Chelsea away next week, so it's not as if they have a very good run of fixtures immediately in the short term. I still think it's a case of waiting and seeing. If I had Ronaldo, I would keep him, but I would not look to buy him.
That run from game week 16 has been described by some managers as the best ever fixture run seen in FPL. I'm not sure, maybe that's a bit hyperbolic perhaps, but it is. It runs for a long, long time from game week 16 to I think something like game week 32. The fixtures are very, very good. So certainly one to keep an eye out. A lot of whether or not you buy Ronaldo will be based on your team structure, and we'll talk very shortly about another premium striker who's very popular this week. You can probably guess who. Wolves versus West Ham, the final 3 o'clock kickoff on that Saturday afternoon. And let's talk about a West Ham player who we haven't discussed, I don't think, on this preview before, Bakar. It's usually Antonio, Benrahma and the like. But Jared Bowen going under the radar despite great numbers.
Absolutely, and he's another one who I have penciled in for game week 16. Um, his numbers are absolutely incredible. Since game week 5, he's only behind Salah in terms of XGI when it comes to midfielders. So that just tells you how threatening he has been in recent weeks, and he's getting a lot of shots inside the box. Underlines are very good. Um, it's the same case as Ronaldo, in my opinion. If you own him, you keep him, you start him. If you don't own him, I would potentially wait till game week 16 when West Ham's run gets significantly easier, and then I would look at buying him.
Wolves, Man City, Brighton and Chelsea in his next 4 before that game week 16 fixture against Burnley, where West Ham's fortunes turn. With those fixtures in mind, Bakar, we think of Antonio still, I think, the highest owned forward in the game. But people are starting to question whether or not he deserves a place. West Ham scoring lots of goals, Antonio not involved within their last 7.
I just
What do
think
you
it's
think?
it's I just think it's a freakish coincidence, James.
Okay,
I had Antonio on the bench last week against Liverpool,
you lucky
and
boy.
I was so lucky. I watched the game and I was breaking it. There were so many opportunities. He was actually put clean through on goal, but he miscontrolled the ball and he
Yeah,
fluffed that opportunity. Then there was another one where Bowen actually passed to Fornals, and Fornals actually ended up scoring, but he could have went the other way to Antonio, and that would have been an Antonio goal. But I got away with it. I just think it's just not falling for him at the moment, but the moment he does, he's going to score big. I have no doubts about Antonio as a pick going forward. Absolutely none.
3 fixtures remaining in this preview, and they really are the meat of the game week, I think it's fair to say. We'll start with the 5:30 on Saturday, early evening, Liverpool versus Arsenal. Plenty of FPL interest here. We could talk about Salah, Trent, Mane, Shimmercast even, now that Robbo looks like he's going to be out. But you have chosen to focus on Diogo Jota, another who is
Yes,
benefiting, it seems, from a injury in that
absolutely,
Liverpool
absolutely, James.
11.
I think Jota is an excellent option to own from this game week onwards. Um, Now the rumors that Firmino is out till around mid December, that gives Jota at least 6 fixtures, 6 Premier League fixtures to start, and the fact that there's a chance that Salah and Mane might be gone around the 25th or 26th of December, so that sort of gives him the opportunity to get an extended run in the team. I think at 7.5 million playing up front for Liverpool as a midfielder, it's a bit of a no-brainer personally. From game week 4 to 7, I know he let a lot of people down because his actual points weren't as good as his expected numbers. But I even in that run, he was fourth for big chance involvements and fifth for XGI, which just tells you how explosive of an option he is. I have no doubts regarding his potential. I think it's definitely worth bringing him in.
Yeah, well, one of the misses of the season, I think, around kind of game week 4 or 5, where he missed that open
Yeah,
goal from about a yard out. However, those are the players that FPL managers like us should be focusing on because, maybe
exactly.
a more casual manager looks at his points history and thinks, even when he was starting, he wasn't doing too well. But the underlying stats indicate that he is going to be due far more of those chances. And of course, 9 times out of 10, he puts them away. Now, there is a battle of sorts between these explosive mid-priced midfielders, and the other takes part in the 2 o'clock kickoff on Sunday. That is Phil Foden. Now, Bakar, let's imagine you own Kai Havertz or Mason Mount, for example, and you're looking to make a transfer. You've got the money to buy both. Which one do you pick?
I would honestly find a way to get both in my team. I think it's
Okay.
gotten to that point. Actually, yes. I think over the next weeks, it's very important to own both because both are playing for the 2 best attacks in the league, and both are basically going to be central to their team. I personally think if I had the choice of buying one, I would I would just say Jota 51, Foden 49 this week, but it's very, very close. Even the bookies odds can't separate them. I was actually hoping you'd ask this question, so I'd done my research. Jota and Foden are actually both 46% to score this week, according to the bookies. That just tells you that there's not much to separate between the two sides.
Mm.
Um, and the Foden, when it comes to Foden, he's had a 45% goal involvement for Manchester City this season, which is very, very high. Whenever he's been on the field, he's been involved in goals, which is the highest among all City players this season. And ever since he's been playing in Game Week 6, he's putting up some very good numbers. He's only second to Salah among midfielders for XGI, which tells you all you need to know, really.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think in terms of opponents, I mean, Everton, of course, our recent memory is Everton keeping a clean sheet against Spurs with keeping Kane and Son quiet. Prior to that, however, Everton were pretty leaky. Arsenal, meanwhile, have been a little bit more rigid at the back. So maybe on that basis, I'm kind of, erring towards Foden. But as you say, if the bookies can't separate them, I certainly can't. It will be interesting to see how both get on, and it does throw a spanner in the works, doesn't it? For those that have invested in Son, for example, and have allocated plenty of their midfield budget to him, it means it's going to be difficult for them to also get on Foden and Jota and have a decent front line as well. So lots of
Yeah,
conundrums here. It does feel like we're in quite a formative point of the season in terms of how we structure our team ahead of, I think
exactly,
it's Bakar,
exactly.
10 game weeks in 38 days or something absurd like that. So
Exactly. And it's that point of the season where you need to have a good bench.
yes, absolutely. Let's talk about another of Foden's colleagues, João Cancelo, who he got 3 assists, didn't he, during the Champions League fixture for Man City prior to game week 11. Then got another 2 assists, albeit slightly fortuitous. As a non-owner, I would say that. In game week 11, he's the one of the only Man City players that has started every single game, along with I think Edison. Unusual for Pep, Bakar, but you would not drop him at the moment, would you, if you were his manager?
I mean, no way. He's been one of their best performers this season, and whether he's playing as a left back or right back, he seemed to be doing a great job. I think we're at that point in the season where, despite the occasional rest that might happen for Cancelo, I just think he's worth owning because he's too good of a player to not to own, because the damage he can do in any of the games he starts is significant. As I was talking about James and Chilwell and their XGI earlier, Cancelo is right out there as well. So I think he's a high priority transfer to bring in if you don't own.
There's too many high priority transfers this week. Let's very quickly touch on team structure, Bakar, because I've noticed a lot leading up to game week 12 of discussion over these premium defenders. We've got Chilwell, James, Trent, who had a great game week 11 as well. We've got Cancelo. We've then got the emerging popularity of Spurs defenders under Conte as well, Reguilon, for example, who we'll touch on very shortly. That's 5, all over 5 million. That some are arguing are must owns. I know that every single FPL season there is at least one phase in which someone will float the idea of 5 at the back. But have you seen a more compelling season to do that
Yeah.
than this one before?
Just the fact that Livramento is offering such exceptional value makes me think that it's probably not worth going with 5 premium defenders, because Livramento is just he's a bit of a deal breaker at this point in
Mm,
time.
mm, mm. Okay. When you see a
But
five
I totally get your argument.
when you see a 5 at the back team, and there have been more, in the last few game weeks than perhaps we've ever seen before, certainly amongst these kind of Twitter community managers.
Yeah.
Do you think to yourself these guys are doomed, or are you starting to think actually that looks better than my team? Because I certainly am.
No, I don't think they look doomed at all. I mean, it's a decent strategy. It's not something I would do because it makes your team a bit inflexible going forward. But I can see the logic behind it.
Okay, thank you. Spurs versus Leeds, 4:30 on that Sunday afternoon, the final game of the game week, and there'll be plenty of eyes on this from an FPL and generally footballing perspective as well, particularly as it's Conte's first home fixture. What do we make of Spurs under Conte after one game week, Bakar?
So I'll start off from their defense first. They had a very good game from a defensive point of view against Everton. They just restricted them to 5 shots in the box with a minimal XG, which just tells you, what Conte is going to prioritize as a manager straight away. He's made them more resolute. It was interesting to see Reguilon and Emerson's average position. Both of them were marauding down the flanks. And actually, Reguilon actually fluffed a big opportunity to score. Emerson Royal was very attacking as well. So um, there could be an argument you can make for owning either of those going forward. In fact, in one of his recent quotes, Reguilon did say that they were looking to score and looking to attack more. The exact quote says that Conte wants us to be solid in defense, but at the same time, we have to arrive in the box, help the strikers score goals and give assists. So that tells you all you need to know about how the wing backs are going to be playing. As far as Son and Kane are concerned, Son is 2 million cheaper, which helps, especially with the congestion kicking in. I think uh, having a good bench is going to be vital. With Kane, he's 2 million more expensive. He probably is not going to be a captaincy shout till game week 15. The only fixture where he will be a captaincy shout is when Spurs are playing Norwich at home and Liverpool have Wolves away. Um,
Mm.
but what I like about Kane is the fact that he allows for an easy move to Ronaldo in game week 16. So
Yeah.
I can see the pros and cons of owning both. Kane is in more form. I guess you can say that on the basis. Okay, I know he's scored against substandard opposition, but still, I mean, strikers need confidence, and you can see with Kane that he's back in that kind of form. Um, and the last thing regarding this is that Kane, I don't think he's going to get subbed under Conte with the kind of work rate that Conte demands. Son has actually been subbed in both games, which is another thing to take into consideration. A lot of managers are considering which one to own. So I've put the pros and cons in front of you. That the choice is now for you to make.
Thank you. Yeah, I have to admit, I personally bought in Son last game week ahead of their fixture against Everton, and regret it now. Let's very quickly touch on Leeds. Not in terms of their FPL assets, but more in terms of the opposition that they might provide for Spurs, because they have been, strangely for a Bielsa team, quite resolute at the back, Bakar, certainly from a statistical perspective when we look at the last 4 game weeks. What are your thoughts on that as far as attacking output goes for the likes of Kane and Son?
They have been great actually in recent weeks, but I personally think that's a limited sample, and the fact that most of their fixtures have been favorable in recent weeks. When you look at their performances against Man United, Liverpool, West Ham, or even against Everton when they had Richarlison and Calvert-Lewin both playing this season, Leeds have struggled big time, and they have an average XG conceded of around 2.5, which tells me that they're likely to struggle against the top teams. Whether or not you consider Spurs a top team is up for you
Yeah.
to decide. But I mean, I personally think Spurs will score a couple past them.
Okay. Right. Okay. Well, interesting. One to keep an eye out for sure. Abdul, in fact, in our best transfers video on Tuesday, named 3 Spurs players in that. So he's certainly got the faith that Conte is going to turn them around. Let's see what happens on that Sunday afternoon. Okay, Bakar, thank you so much. That wraps up our
Pleasure.
Game Week 12 preview. Very quickly, will it be another Salah captaincy this game week, or are you tempted to
For sure.
experiment?
Salah,
Yeah.
foreseeable future.
Okay, rightio. In that case, there's nothing left to do except wish you a good luck for Game Week 12. Guys, as I always say in these videos, go and follow at BigManBakar, both on Instagram and Twitter. He's very active on both and well worth the follow. If you like this kind of statistical-based analysis, Bakar is your man. Do give this video a like if you enjoyed it. Bakar puts lots of effort into these previews. There's lots of research that goes into it. I mean, if you can pull out the bookies odds for Jota and Foden scoring off the top of your head, you know you've put in a lot of research. So do give it a like if you appreciate that. And do tune in again next week. We'll be back ahead of Game Week 13. We were talking off air about what we were going to do ahead of the congestion It's already been mentioned as far as game weeks go over the next month and a half. We're not entirely sure. I think we're gonna treat it on a week by week basis, but where possible and where the deadlines give us time to do so, we do hope to continue with these videos. So do bear with us on that, but certainly for next week, it's business as usual. So until then, good luck for game week 12, guys. Bakar, good luck, mate. Not that you need it.
Good luck, James. Good luck, James. Good luck to all our viewers as well.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
I certainly do need it. All right, take care, mate. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.